what I'd like to talk about today are my top 5 coins. Here in a layover, Las Vegas for one day, heading to Old Idaho for this week.
Mission 41B, the first flight of the Orbital Discovery, and the shuttle has cleared the tower. Discovery's 4 computers now have primary control of critical vehicle functions.
What's up, guys? Just give me a quick sound check. Let me know if the background audio is low enough. It'll be good to go. It's been a while. Let me make sure my screens are set up right. Give me 1 second. Yeah, looks good. Cool. Just go through charts. Got everything up. It's a catch-up stream. It's a catch-up stream, and it's, as I said in the tweet yesterday, it's an AMA. 1 sec. Let me just look at the chat. Audio's good. All right, cool. I just shared the link again, so we'll give it another minute or two. I'll catch up in the chat. See some familiar faces, some familiar avatars. What's up, Asgard? What's up, Cornholio? What's up, Alan? Chris with a beard. Long time, man. Chaos. Andrew Sun. What's up, man? Raiden. And I don't want to butcher this, but Esadik. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. And Jurgen. So we'll give it another minute. Yeah, it's been a while. God, I suck at streaming. I always have the best intentions to stream consistently, and then just life gets in the way. For the life of me, I can't find a day where I'm happy to consistently do it, but we'll figure it out. I also decided, so for anyone who is just tuning in now, I decided that I'm going to put out another course. So I'm going to start working on that. I'll have more details on that in the near future. And that should be a nice addition to the current free course that is on YouTube. What's up, Ross? Michael, what's up, Doc? Long time. Doc, I don't know if I spoke to you, if I responded to your tweet. We haven't spoken in DM in a little while, but it was my scalenes. They were pulling my first ribs up and apparently into nerve bundles. So that is all fixed. I'm good to go on the mat, in the gym. And yeah, got a lot of feedback about that nerve issue. Wasn't sure if it was a some kind of bicep tendonitis or shoulder issue, but figured it out. Cool. All right. So thank you for tuning in. I think we're good to start now. The screen is changed, right? It still says, can you guys see my Twitter page right now? Because I'm looking at the YouTube feed right now, and it still has my starting soon thing up. So I'm sure it's probably lagged a little bit, but just to make sure that we're not stuck. Are you looking at a video of BitBoy? Might be a little lag. Okay, you see Twitter. Good. Yeah, the bike is awesome. You see Quip Boy. All right, so before we get into it, you know the deal. None of this is financial advice, strictly for entertainment purposes only. Just my views, and that's it. Just how I'm looking at the market. Not doing a whole lot of trading. That hasn't changed. Like, I feel like I haven't done a whole lot of trading in the last month and a half, 2 months, maybe even more than that. You know, I was on vacation, had the holidays, my daughter's birthday. Not even just events outside of the market, but it's been one of those periods where micromanaging positions and really just focusing on the low time frame is not really necessary. I was trading around core positions for a while, but it made sense to kind of back off and give price some room to breathe, especially in alts, because it's really easy to sell out of positions early in alts and just continue to watch them, go up beyond your expectations, beyond your take profits. And I'm pretty good at identifying when we are in sort of an expansionary period, when we're more like in a bracketed period, and making sure that I'm able to switch gears. I'm never right there. I'm never right at, I don't pivot at the exact, point in the turn. But I do make sure that I have a tendency to figure things out pretty quickly, right? So I might not be in full-on swing mode and still trading intraday rotations before, maybe it takes a couple sessions to realize, all right, so these are positions I could probably let run. I probably don't have to focus on, trading range-bound conditions, and we have a little bit of juice in the tank. And that's what it's been for the last quarter. That's what it's been for, I don't want to say it's been like that for the last year, because 2023 was clearly a great year, but there were really long periods of bracketed conditions where the market was just rotational, range bound, and we might have had good expansions on weekly time frames, but it really actually served to my trading style, which is, like I say, it's anywhere up to 2-week holding period, 2 seconds to 2 weeks for my positions. And only in the last quarter did I really begin to back off, like I said. So, yeah, so not trading a whole lot. Hopefully the market really begins to pick up again and that changes. But it's good to catch up. We'll go over BTC. We'll go over, obviously, my opinions on, the broader market. We'll touch on some current events. And then I promised that we will answer every single question. So there obviously will be a cutoff. This has to be realistic. I don't want to be on this stream just to be upfront. I don't want to be on this for any longer than an hour and 15 minutes. It is a Saturday evening where I am in New York, 7:36. Happens to be the case that I put my daughter down an hour ago, and my wife is out with her girlfriends for their 40th, for one of their 40th birthdays, and I have some free time. So I put up a new, just cover this real quick. I put up a new link. It's the Linktree link right at the top of my page. I'm sure you're subscribed to my Twitter. Hopefully you're subscribed to the YouTube. But this link is, honestly, it's a lot easier to just compile any kind of deals I could get for you guys, whether that is sign-up bonuses, whether that is, current products that I'm using. I'm going to populate this as much as possible. I put the trading book list up here. So right now it says Kenner and Clark because someone actually stole my handle, and I had to work with Linktree to get them booted. And I'll be switching to the Flowhorse pretty shortly, but either way, there's the trading book list here. So this is it's I want to say it's as close to an exhaustive trading book list as you'll find. It's an archive of all the books that I've read, all the books that I think are really useful. There's a ton of them. Don't get overwhelmed if you're like, hey, Ryan, what can I read to help my trading? I honestly would take this list and I would start at the top. So, you see Martin Over Markets, that's Dalton, right? So it's market profile, TPO charts, technical analysis, financial markets. That's John Murphy. So that's an old TA book. I'm not a fan of like TA once you get outside of support and resistance. It's some very basic stuff, but needless to say, this is a really good This is a really good book for some kind of fundamental base. You have some tape reading and market tactics. It's a really old book on just volume, options, futures, and other derivatives. It's a very technical book. If you're going to trade options and futures, it's a good book to obviously read, but it's not really a requirement. The number one trading book I would say that I would start with, and I've said this numerous times, sort of ad nauseum at this point, is Alpha Trader by Brent Donnelly. I would read Reminiscence of a Stockbroker, a Stock Trader, and then I would probably read, I'd read some kind of price action book just to, again, stay kind of grounded in technicals as well. The point is, after all that, just like throw a dart at this page. You don't have to feel like you're going to learn most from the market in the market. Actually practicing, sitting at the desk, observing, however, whatever view you take on the market, whether you're a high time frame trader or you're a low time frame trader. I will always say that low time frame traders, they have the benefit of getting a lot of feedback, right, in a short amount of time versus a high time frame trader, stock operator. Thanks, Asgard. That's probably one of the best books because it's timeless, right? A low time frame trader, they have the benefit of getting a lot more feedback from the market. Whereas if you're like, hey, I just want to trade the daily and be a position trader, the daily, weekly, monthly, and up, it's like, all right, for the signals that you get, they're going to be few and far between. And you're not going to have as many, swings at the bat to really get an idea of how you're doing. Either way. So that is the book list. A couple other things here. Again, the YouTube is there. The course is on the YouTube. So that should be helpful. Like I said, I'm going to populate that more moving forward. So real quick, just some current events. I mean, this is not even worth going into. Your questions are more important, but BitBoy, he was in the New York Post today. I don't really care about BitBoy at all. I've always thought he was, pretty much a clown. But I'm the kind of person where I can identify someone I think is basically a clown, but then I have that little part of me that's a human being and is like, listen, this person is you in a different life, right? We're all kind of different versions of everyone that you meet in your life is a version of yourself that never was, right? Depending on the context you grew up in, depending on the situations you were in, but still depending on choices too. I don't feel bad for the guy. After there was like a period of time where I might have felt slightly bad for him like over a year ago, but all of his actions have been it's been borderline, if not just insane over the last few months. Just his complete meltdown in the public eye. It's really sad. And I wouldn't even talk about this, but it was in the New York Post today. New York Post is like, it's not a reputable news source. They tend to post some pretty edgy stuff. It's not that it's not reputable, but it's definitely a little bit more aggressive than the Times or the Journal or something that is not going to be posting anything about BitBoy. The New York Post they'll go for a story just because it's juicy and, they maybe might not have any other content. But this is sad, right? This is honestly really sad because he has kids. Like I have a child now, and your whole life changes, and I can't imagine it not changing for somebody. I can't imagine someone having kids and not becoming a completely different, better version of themselves. So it's sad. It's relevant. It's relevant because it's in crypto, but I hope the guy gets better, honestly. It's unfortunate. Everyone has a different bottom, but this guy apparently hasn't hit bottom, because the highlight of this right in the middle of the screen is that he ended up, after that post article, after, the $50 million, $40 million loss, whatever, who knows if that's true. He shilled a shitcoin. He shilled his top 5 shitcoins, or alluded to mentioning them at some point, after saying something about his ex-wife's after October, because the divorce was in October. I hate that I even know that. It's absolute useless information for me to know in my world, right? And in your world too. Like, stuff like this should not be in your head. There's better things that should take up sort of, that space in your head. But either way, we're all on CT in some capacity. Just kind of gross. So I just want to touch on real quick after that. I mentioned, I kind of pivoted. I went from saying, I do think meme coins are a joke, right? Meme coins are memes. It's pretty tautological, right? I don't think they're serious. I think that they serve as sort of a signal to get the market interested. I think that they are great trades. They're attention grabbers, but I think most meme coins, the faster something is able to be brought to market, the more likely it is that it's going to round trip all the way back down to its starting point. Generally speaking, there's a pretty direct relationship between how tough a project is to bring to market and how well it does, at least in the short term. Meme coins are flashes in the pan. The only thing that really got my attention was this really attention-grabbing picture it's actually legitimate. It is the Whiff hat from Dog Whiff Hat. It was knitted. I would love a smaller version of this, and it was placed on the bull that is down in the financial district. So this is a pretty iconic picture in my opinion already. I could be pretty slanted because, maybe I might have been looking for a reason to get long Whiff or to pick some Whiff up, which I have, but nothing substantial. I just look at it and I say, what if this $250 million market cap coin currently, which is the number one meme coin on Solana, which Solana is like a cycle behind Ethereum. What if this becomes, the next multi-billion-dollar market cap, peak excess, hyper euphoria beneficiary, further out in the cycle. So I have to own some of this. I do think that for the 99% of other meme coins that exist, they're not worth more than a couple week hold, during a really hot period. There is a Jupe airdrop. So the first thing I'll say before we get into just broader market views, just taking a look at the market from the top down and then getting into some low time frame stuff that hopefully might be applicable still by the end of this video if anyone's tuning in after and is recording and chopped up, is I mentioned something on Twitter either 2 days ago or yesterday. I don't remember. Here it is, actually. You could probably make a killing this year just focusing on trading post-airdrop exchange listings. So you think of yourself as, honestly, think about like you're a special situations trader in crypto, right? So the thing is, like, you want to obviously get really good at something, right? You want to either focus on just a few assets, get really familiar with them, obviously focus on one market rather than try to spread yourself all over the place. And you could you'd continue to dial down from there. You might focus on being an airdrop farmer. You might focus on, being someone who spots gems early. You might try to be, which is going to be the more difficult thing now, someone who trades Bitcoin and majors intraday. And they should become a little bit more difficult now that ETFs are live and you're going to be, trading against the likes of Citadel when that has more of an effect on the underlying price action. But there's many things that you can focus on. And the thing is, you have to focus on something, right? So it's very easy in this market to walk into the market. You're in a huge casino. There are multiple games of skill versus games of just chance. It's not like there's just a few games of skill. There's a lot of opportunities for games of skill where you can sit down at that table, whatever it is, spend a good amount of your time there and figure out how to pick up the free money. Okay. One thing that I personally am, and just throwing this out there, and I'd say it's for, honestly, I said it's an idea for a mid-sized trader. That's kind of bullshit because, like I said, like I am right now, I'm in a position where I love trading, but I definitely don't want to be sitting at the desk all day the way I used to. Now being a new dad, I'll probably go through periods where I'm just like, okay, I'm getting back at the desk and focusing on it like insanely. But I do want to, slice things up a little bit more. I personally could see myself focusing on something like this moving forward, right? There's a decent historical sample of price action flow, market maker behavior to study already. So my view on this is when you have something that is there's going to be so first and foremost, my opinion is obviously there's going to be a lot of airdrops, right? I think this is something that I personally don't see it as being something that's great other than, there are some times when it's really fair, but it seems like a lot of the times after an airdrop, the market always, depending on the mood, focuses on, who benefited the most, what was known beforehand, the few people that managed to make away with most of the pie. And then a lot of people get caught buying the top and they're burned for months because usually there's a pump and then there's a dump, then there's another pump, and then there's a longer reaccumulation phase. So almost never you will see a airdrop just go up only from that point. Is TIA one of them? No, TIA wasn't. I don't think TIA was an airdrop, right? I might see. I'm not the person to ask about this, but really, TIA is the only coin that I've seen listed recently that just went up only. Celestia, right? Celestia is something that I need a bigger bag of at this point because I don't have a lot of exposure to Celestia. I was a person who was trading it lower, and unfortunately, like that goes. You understand? But what happens is with airdrops, there's obviously a ton of hype around airdrops, right? People want free money. I think there's an opportunity at each listing. So if we just look at Jupiter, right? So Jupe. Now this is on everything at this point. Okay, it's on Binance, it's on Bybit, it's on almost all of the major exchanges. It's not on all of them, but it's on Binance and it's on Bybit, which are going to be, in terms of just derivative activity, that's where the bulk of the activity occurs. For airdrops, right? With each listing, you essentially have a really great day to focus on from an intraday standpoint. So you want to have the dates, right? You do a little digging. Honestly, this is going to be just a shill of bread and butter daily. So bread and butter daily is this is ArtXBT and can't remember who else. Some friends from another small chat and some friends from Rebirth. This basically compiles all the things that are coming up, airdrops, emissions, any kind of event for a fundamental event, whether it's stake, anything, basically anything you could think of, right? With regard to altcoins. So if there's an unlock, you name it. Okay, pretty simple. So bread and butter daily. This is a free access. But the point is, with airdrops, something is, maybe it's on one major exchange, all right? There's going to be a bunch of activity because the market is really focused on these. These are catalyst-driven trades, and it offers really good price action, right? It offers, at least if anything, it offers, one, free money if you get the airdrop, and then two, just a period of volatility when it's listed on the exchange. I think what you can do is you can study prior airdrops, identify there's some sort of patterns and there's some phenomena that repeats for airdrops in that first 24-hour period. You might want to compile, let's say, how high it goes off of Binance listings, how high it goes off of Bybit listings from prior price, what the average 1 hour range is, 24-hour range. The point is you have an area to focus on. And then for the next 2 weeks, I think you have an opportunity for a larger trade setup. So what tends to happen with airdrops is you have a really volatile period. And just to give anyone an idea, just to give everyone an idea, rather, what we're looking at. This is Jupiter Exchange. This is the airdrop Jupe. All right. This is on Binance. It's on, like I said, Bybit. You're really only looking at 2 days, 3 days of price action. So 1 session, 2 session, 3 sessions. All right. You could see that it goes from high volatility to where the last session, this is a weekend, okay, and it looks like weekends might be a little bit drier, which is cool, right? Monday through Friday, traditional hours, that'd be great. It might be thinner on the weekends, though. You might see some kind of, predatory behavior on the weekends, but right now the market's just kind of, it's kind of meh. But you're looking at Jupe. We're looking at the good thing about an airdrop is right after you have a really good anchored VWAP. So you have an actionable anchored VWAP, I'll say. And VWAPs are really very useful, right? A VWAP, before it was an indicator that CT became familiar with, it was basically a trade benchmark. So whether if you're looking to buy, you want to get filled at or below VWAP. Again, that average price, the average where most of the volume took place for that day, it's saying that you got in at a better price. And you want to sell at or above, okay? VWAP tends to be an area that's ripe with liquidity. Again, it's an average, right? It's an area where most of the risk, you could say, is concentrated over that period of time. It becomes a little less actionable over high time frames, but low time frames, just in terms of when market is ripe with positioning, is a really useful tool. And it's most useful when it's anchored from a catalyst. So you'll see people, it could be anchored from, it doesn't have to be a catalyst. It could be anchored from a swing point, a session. It could be anchored from a news event, right? So some kind of news event, Elon Musk is buying more Dogecoin. You hook up an anchored VWAP to when that news hit and when price responded. And what you do is you get an idea of where that risk is averaged out, and you get an idea of where price is sitting in relation to that, whether it's 1 standard deviation, 2, blah, 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 blah. With airdrops, you have an anchored VWAP right from the listing. So you immediately get an idea of, okay, right now, post airdrop, obviously bears are in control because you have a bunch of just free supply essentially hitting the market. So what you would ultimately want to see is, and this is something right now that Jupe is an example of, if we look at Jupe just intraday over the last few days, I mean, if you look at Jupe compared to other pairs over the last few days, and I know it's only 3 days for Jupe, but this is a 5-day look back on Solana, BTC, ETH, SU. Those relatively flat. So majors, like it turns out, if you were in other things besides majors for this pullback, you're really getting hammered. Whereas BTC and ETH are kind of just they're just chilling. But with Jupe, it looks like you do have a lot of people like myself who was picking some up and buying on the derivatives exchanges with there's really nothing that's happening. So they're buying, but there's a lot more supply hitting the market. There's a case, it's just more sellers than buyers, right? So for all that buying that's coming in, price isn't going anywhere. I'm thinking this is probably going to flush hard again before we see some kind of bounce. But what ultimately you would want to see is, like, for airdrops, honestly, when you have a very clean, like, let's say, let me just get this out of the way. You have some kind of clean structure taking place. Obviously this is in a range overall, but you have periods where prices more clearly consolidating than others. Here's 2 expansionary periods, right? Expansion down, brief consolidation. When you have this with an airdrop, a lot of times you will get some really clean price action to base a longer position off of. So, if you're trading all this, let's say you're focusing on the next listing, okay, you're at the desk, listings occurring, you're trading intraday. Over the next few days, next week or so, you're seeing things really develop where, let's say you get something where, prices, we do end up spiking, there's a major flush out, bunch of liquidations, you have these clean structures to go off of, right? Now price is back trading and rebid above prior levels within this consolidation, right? So it's brief, right? This is still just a few days old, let's say, maybe we're over a week at this point, but now you're beginning to retake ground. And honestly, with these, it's simple, a lot of the times, break of whatever diagonal trend line is governing this price action downward. So let's say you have this very clean diagonal, prices retrading above local levels, it's rebid at this point, buyers clearly able to overwhelm sellers at this point after, trading much lower below VWAP for most of the time. So there's a clear shift to control. And now let's say you're above that diagonal and you're back above VWAP as well. You know, a lot of times you could just take this and expect that this is going to overthrow much higher. And it gives you longer duration trades within something that gives you really good short-term trades. Point of all this is you could literally just spend the next couple of weeks identifying potential airdrop opportunities, right? There's a degree of obviously luck with this, but when you have something actually listed, you don't have to do much thinking, and then focus on where it's getting listed next and being at the desk for those listings. And then again, just spotting the easy brief momentum trade that occurs where you have a substantial markup for a couple weeks before what this ultimately does is most of the time do something like this. Maybe it marks up, trends for a couple weeks, and then you get a longer reaccumulation phase because again, remember, all these people up here, happy to sell up here, already up 1000x, right? So you wonder, all right, this is 50, 60, 70% off of the highs. How is it possible there's still so much selling pressure? Well, guess what? There are people that are still up 500x all the way down there. So you just have to keep that in mind. So that's my opinion. Something to focus on. You obviously want to find things to focus on and specialize in. You know, things are tight with Jupe right now. One other thing you might want to see is using ATR. You know, the average day range for Jupe is just under 13%. So what I have is just an average daily range put on the chart right now. So we could see, all right, if we are outside of the structure now cleanly, you know, we're having a move that is a greater magnitude for what the average is over the last few days. All right, so maybe that's something worth paying attention to. You see that something like this occurs, trading back above VWAP, and let's say in that case you start to see a bunch of volume coming in. And right now it's not the case, right? Volume is trending down a little bit. Sellers are still, again, in control. So that's just an idea, right? All right, let's talk about BTC real quick. Then let's go over the questions, and then hopefully we don't want to spend too much time here, but I'll make sure to hit every question. I can't say I'll spend an hour on each one of your questions, but I will hit all of them. All right, so first and foremost, a couple things high time frame wise. So just real quick, like my opinion is I still am of the opinion that we're going to move lower. Just to clarify, and I was very public with this, I for the first time sold some of my spot up here. So I sold some of my spot, and I'm honestly looking to put that back. That might be a mistake, right? Because we're able to hang out up here. I think we ultimately though are left. So if we're looking at just the high time frame chart, like looking at the weekly, for example, big picture wise, right? It's very clear that this is really strong. So there's no real reason to get like macro bearish or, really doom and gloom, as long as we're honestly all the way back above this prior range. Like big picture wise, if we came down here, it wouldn't really change a lot. I mean, it would change it if you bought recently, but to be honest, like from a high time frame standpoint, this is a really good platform that we built, these highs, right? A potential platform. Not that I think that it has to come down there by any means. I personally am just of the opinion that we get something that maybe just retakes out these lows, trades back down under 40. Nothing crazy. The only crazy local levels that we have, when I say crazy local levels, if we look at, if we look at the weekly chart right now, this is just quarterly VWAP that I'm going to get rid of, so it's easier to see. If you look at the weekly chart right now, it's very clear we're stuck in a range, right? We could see how prior periods like this, how long they lasted. This is a really strong move. Price is going to move sideways for a while after you see a really strong move like this occur. Don't be surprised. I mean, if you're starting to see alts that have done this, like Link ended up moving up. I don't know where Link is at right now, but if you look at prior cycles, like there were long periods where for a lot of the market, it was over. But it was just, it was a period of a vertical correction, right? There was a sideways correction. It's very clean right now. As far as like where the market would need to go to spell trouble, it's tough because if you look at this weekly chart, there's actually a lot of stuff that took place down in this structure, right? Going back down to even, even sub 38. The thing is, you do have these ugly lows that are all kind of slightly higher than the next, which is, the setup for a stop run, because you have clusters of stops that weren't interrupted on this high time frame chart. It's pretty easy to drag stops up for this entire move. But to be fair, like this is probably a pretty good level. This meaty area in the profile right here between 38 and 36. only trouble area, like a gross area, would be this gap down here. But that's sub 34. Listen, can the market go there? Absolutely. Would it be shocking? No, because this market does things like that. But are there a ton of other levels, like these low volume areas, where the market could find support, and logically we would be focused on that first before then, talking about much lower prices? Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just of the opinion that, one, all right, we're back in this range. If we're trading cleanly back above 45, I think you could just put a bullseye right on these highs. Very likely at that point that if we flip this level right here, you can see how clean the structure is. There's your profile for that. That's, bulk of the volume for this entire trend is now taking place up here, going all the way back to September. Excuse me. Let me just put that back on now, because that 36 level also coincides with that quarterly VWAP. So the VWAP anchored going all the way back to this really strong quarter. So there's a lot of confluence around 36 if we were able to break below 38 as just being the next good area to get involved. This is not a thin area. So it's not a thin area, so it's not like you would expect price to move really rapidly through here, then unless there's some kind of major move in legacy, 10% plus, 5% plus move in the S&P. We're going to become more correlated to the S&P now. I think it's inevitable, but it's always going to be the larger moves that are trouble, which is trouble for everybody either way, no matter what you're in for the most part, if you're in any kind of risk assets. So I think, it's reasonable that we could just chop, honestly, between like 38 and 45. If we're taking out these highs, like you don't fade that, right? Because now we've put in this swing, taken out these lows for the range that we've been in going back to December. It's good, but it's in the middle and it's looking kind of, farty at this point. If we're trading back above 45, targeting these highs, targeting 50K makes sense. And then you're looking for 46, this 46 to 48 region to act as support. And then you're not, at that point, like if you've moved sideways this long, you're probably targeting higher either way. I think that this is ultimately going back to all-time highs, going through all-time highs. It's a matter of when, right? So high time frame wise, unless we start trading back below, unless we start losing any kind of bid down at 38, could we go down to 38? Yeah, I would assume that that's, in the cards, but I wouldn't be mad if we didn't go down there. I would just end up I'd buy that portion back higher. Wouldn't have a problem doing that. So another thing to consider high time frame wise is that we are, right in the cusp of the halving. The halving for me is not about the actual mechanics taking place in terms of supply and miners. For me, it's not about that at all. It's just that it is the most reliable narrative this market has ever had, and it's also the only narrative that really has any kind of traction outside of crypto natives. This is really insular. We have our own small narratives here, but this is one that other people outside of crypto that I know that aren't really that keen in this market are aware of. It's one that's going to be on CNBC. It is going to be in your face a lot more. It's worked in the past. It's a small sample size, but it's all we have. And again, the most reliable narrative that crypto has had that has lifted every single boat. So we're coming up on that like a month, 2 months away. And, a couple more than that, right around May, April, right? If anything, what you want to do is just see that prices, there's been sell-offs into prior halvings that were 30, 50% plus, obviously, right before. But if we're still just strong into halving, like drifting up higher, that's probably it, honestly. And if anything, if you are like on the sidelines, like I don't know when to buy, me personally, let's say nothing happens besides we go sideways with a slight positive drift. So positive drift for me into major events, pretty telling. Right, where you just have something that kind of slowly grinds up. And what this is someone just saying, I want to buy. I just want to passively get filled over time, raising their bids up, chasing the market. And then you have sort of a chase that takes place as soon as you have a first markup candle. If we start grinding into April, May, and we're still drifting higher, maybe we have one more spike and lower, but it's telling the underlying strength is there. It's telling that it's already there to begin with, right? Like when I talk about a pullback, because I think one's coming again, I tend to be that kind of person to begin with. And I know that, and that's why I'm very quick to change my mind. But I just think we have a period of excess. that we just came off of. There's still a good amount of, if we look at like, one thing is that's positive is if you look at annualized basis, so the dated futures contracts, this actually came off a lot. Came off a lot probably because people wanted to grab this carry trade, but it came back down to November levels where price was at like 32, 33K. So this was a good amount of leverage in the system that came off, right? Post ETF announcement, a lot of leverage came out of the CME, a lot of open interest came off the CME as well. This is annualized basis, not open interest, but this is where a lot of positioning was, right? So a good amount came off there. Now this is more in line with your perpetual annualized, right? So your funding rates annualized. So there is still, if we look at like BTC and Coinbase and Binance and Bybit, those are basically, if you're trading intraday, focus on just those. If you look at like Bitfinex, it's been buying a ton lately. But if we look at like BTC on Coinbase compared to Binance, over the last couple weeks, it's been trading at a pretty steep discount. So funding's still positive on exchanges, probably because of that. I'm still kind of weary, right? I think that there is, again, I think there's a little bit more leverage left in the system that we see get wiped out before we have sort of up only, right? I hate to say that because I never think it's up only, but join the club. So we have, let's see, annualized basis came off a little bit. Funding rates are basically the same annualized at that point as what's it called? Dated futures contracts. If we look at the options market, sorry, saying a lot of ums now, I'm trying to remember. Look at the options market, skews. So the difference between implied volatility of puts and calls. So we're seeing whether the calls are more demand or puts are more demand. It's pretty neutral, right? It was pretty negative for a while, right? A little fear in the market, people buying insurance. It's pretty neutral now, though. If anything, it's shorter stuff is going back towards the negative territory, but it's neutral. It's not like it's egregiously negative or anything. I don't even think it's negative except for maybe 30-day. One thing, though, that stands out is this is probably coming off because, again, I think there's a few people that are on the same side as me with this, and they look to be selling calls because I think that this is coming off because calls are trading lower because they're getting sold. And you're seeing that more recently, most of the activity was calls being sold. So that's basically someone saying, I don't think the market is going to be above X, right, at this period in time. So basically, how many times am I going to say basically, expecting that there is a little bit of a ceiling, at least for the time being. But nothing looks really that ugly, right? Like I said, neutral funding came off, but still positive. Annualized basis in, quarterlies came off a lot. Alt open interest, though, another thing that's always, I think it's really important to focus on. This is still really high. So all others, so alts and BTC, I talk about this pinch all the time. This is hidden leverage in the system. So there's a lot of open interest spread across the market. And we know that there's not that many cash buyers because there's just inflated valuations at this point. So there is still a lot of open interest in the futures market. That funding and cost of carrying that has come down a lot, but it's still there, right? And we know that that is positioning that has often close invalidations, liquidations, and path dependence, basically. So that is really high. It's the highest it's been in the last few years. And that's always something worth paying attention to because, again, it is a sign of leverage spread out in the market. And it does, confirm my bias somewhat that there's still more left to bleed. I mean, alts are getting hammered. Alts have gotten hammered already, but just something to keep in mind. Like I might have said this with WIF, alts that do really well in the beginning and then still go on to do extremely well in the long run. Almost all of them pull back 80-90%, right? So we're looking at TIA, which is incredibly strong. The biggest pullback that we saw with this is going all the way down to that's the break in the VWAP, 26%. I mean, this is a different regime at this point if you assume that that's just going to be maintained, right? I mean, a bunch of other alts have given back a lot. Turn off log. Like this is 30% off the highs, but that is bull market correction territory. But if we're talking about purge, which we have every cycle, These are not, none of these have really put in that substantial of pullbacks. Still 30-40% territory. But, you know, BTC this entire run, entire last year plus, has not exceeded, I think, a 30% pullback. And we're almost always looking at something like that in prior cycles, but it could be just a sign of the current market structure. Let's see, what else? I just think I'll go over the questions, I guess. I think that covered what I wanted to talk about in terms of just broader market view. A good website right here, cryptorank.io. You can basically see like all the vesting unlocks, overviews of individual projects. There's no real products in crypto yet. Wink, wink. Let's see. All right, I think I'm going to take a look at the questions. I'll start with the YouTube chat. If you ask, 10 different questions, obviously I'm not going to answer all 10 of your questions. Like I have to make room for everybody and also wrap this up in the same night that we started. Intraday, let me point this out real quick. So intraday, we're looking at BTC. Things are obviously tightening up, right? So average daily range, 3%. If you look over the last week, there's been a couple days where we've had significant expansions, but over the last 2 days, beginning to tighten up. While we have a standout wick right here on Coinbase, where someone bought fat-fingered 1,000 plus BTC, it looks like almost $50 million in BTC, whatever the value was. Absent that anomaly, things are getting really tight. You have an inside day possibly setting up. If anything, you have a potential break from value. So we look at the prior day structure, prior day's value area. You look at prior day's low, prior day's high, right? So here's the current daily open right here. Is a ton of overlap. So 2 days ago, yesterday, current day, a bunch of overlap, most of the volume right around 43. So there's a good amount of positioning you can imagine is accumulating here. If we end up, let's say, taking out prior week's high, which we haven't traded below, going back to, unless you go back to 2 days ago, we're starting off really balanced, starting off outside of yesterday's value, one-sided from the open, so we haven't taken the high yet, but you're inside of yesterday still. So there's still that inside day setup. It's an inside day setup even more so because, not because we're in this day, but in particular, it's an inside day setup because of this, right? So 1 day, 2 days, bracketed. So this day inside of that day. Here's your prior day's low. Here's your prior day's high. More importantly, a bunch of overlap and positioning isolated around this region. If we end up accepting below yesterday's low, right? So yesterday's low, let's say we have something like this, even better. So take these highs, put in a wick, accept below yesterday's low. Then we're below last week's high, and you have an inside day setup back to these lows. So basically a pretty decent setup that still falls within 1 daily range, going back down to like right around, let's say 42.5. So you have a trade from, 42.9, 42.850, whatever that is, to these lows, which are right around 42. I guess that's right around 42.4, 42.5, excuse me. So small setup, so small intraday setup. If anyone is still trading intraday setups in BTC, but worth noting because inside day setups have been very useful. Let's see. You still have this gap down here. You have a decent gap down here, but again, I still do think that we're going lower than that anyway. I think that we're going to end up trading back down. So when I say gap, it's not like a gap, but there's a small area of single prints down here. So basically just this period right there. That one-sided move up. So this would be a good area to fish, honestly. So seeing if there's a response there, it's a good amount of confluence and structure there. And then maybe have a flush and then another bounce higher back to these lows. There's a good amount of intraday setups local, at least. If you want to focus on those and you don't want to just take your time and enjoy yourself. ETH, still just, look at ETH BTC. What a shame. Bouncing at these lows, but still, what a shame. I'd rather trade BTC. Solana sub 100 again. I think Solana is going to go through a deeper pullback than this. So it's same thinking for BTC. I think BTC is obviously going to be dragging the market in whatever direction it moves. If it moves up, good, right? But my opinion is I'd say 65%. I'd say 65-35 down versus up. All right, so let me look back at some of the questions. Did you fully retire from crypto? No, never. Chaos, I appreciate that. Love the content. So the problem with or anything really that's trying to be the next thing is that it seems like what we do is we're trying to recreate last cycles, right? We take like carbon copies of what we did last cycle and put them on a different chain. So doing that for transitioning from ETH to Solana. Obviously, ETH had a ton of DeFi that didn't end up doing anything either way. But what also happens is the things like the meta, the narratives, you try to just recreate them again. And I think that everyone keeps trying to recreate SHIB, recreate Doge. These things happen organically, right? They happen organically. Remember the conversation where I said, the faster it comes to market, the more likely it is to flop. So you're getting just like, the thing about meme coins is there is no substance to them really. And people are not, you have to give people a bit more credit than just being absolute buffoons and just wanting to invest in memes. I don't fucking think so. Excuse me. That's absolutely ridiculous. Maybe if you think that, I could bet you're probably sub 25 to 17 years old, because that's just, it doesn't have substance. It doesn't have legs. But there will be a couple, right, that are just complete anomalies. And I think they have to just happen naturally. I think WIF, like if it's the thing about WIF having legs maybe is if it's going to be forced into people's domain that are not familiar with it. Like you go out onto the street and you see that bull with the hat on, you're like, what the hell is this? It's a bunch of people signing up to take pictures with it. I have a Robinhood account. Oh shit, there's a little bit of stuff going on back in crypto. I haven't been there in a while. I thought that whole thing fucking burned down. And then there's a little bit more flows getting involved. So I think WIF has a good chance of being WIF, not being SHIB, not being Doge. Like these things have to become their own, have to really assume their own identity. Volman 5-minute time frame book. Yeah, that's great. It's on that list. I don't have any thoughts on DOT, honestly. As far as I'm concerned, I took DOT off my watch list. Looking at the chart, I mean, DOT is weaker than probably most. Probably better off owning BTC than DOT, right? Yeah. I don't know, if DOT has anything coming down the pipeline project-wise. I'm not the person to ask about that. Like, from a technical standpoint, it doesn't look like it's, doing anything exciting. Yeah, so things like Dimension, yeah. There are good longs post-listing. That's the point. There's good trading in the short term that you could really focus on, looking at previous price action of other listings, looking at the order book, seeing how it's trading literally, what kind of behavior is taking place in those first few hours, looking for patterns, right? The point is, it's something to focus on. It's a place something to aim at. And then I think there's always a good trade that lasts a couple weeks from an airdrop, where everyone thought it was going to go to zero and drop, back down to the floor. And then there's a chase that's on because a lot of people thought it was a free short because of all the free coins that came out. So there's a bit of a change in control that takes place. TIA was an airdrop. Okay. So I was correct, but I wasn't sure. TIA being the only airdrop that I've seen that has not, could TIA trade all the way back down here? It doesn't look like it right now. This thing is just mega bid. But my point is, this was an incredible airdrop. If you go all the way back, I was probably, okay, like everything else. This just happens. If you remember, I shared this long down here in TIA. I was buying, I think I bought 240 or 230, and I shared this long as this target, and then ended up selling it like 350, and I was patting myself on the back. But but look how clean this was. So just in faster timeline, first listing, pump. Okay, so this is over just a couple of hours at that point. Then a multi-day consolidation. Clearly this is being picked up. It's really clean. So very clean levels, very obvious support and resistance, and then a very clean break, which you're just not going to fade in the short term. And it was reasonable to have some kind of closer target when you're someone who doesn't know that this is such an incredible, promising project, right? Or that it would be perceived that way, because I'm just not in the weeds in that regard. So I ended up selling too early. You know, I was a buyer at 230 or 240 and ended up selling. I don't think I sold high. I might have sold 380, somewhere between 350 and 380. It's on my timeline still, so I still feel that. Yeah, the founders just sold for Jupiter, obviously. There's a bunch of argument about that, whether or not they deserved it and so forth. ADR range is just the average daily range based on the look back period. So think about ATR, but mapped on the chart. So I can see I'm looking at TIA right now. The average daily range over the last 7 days is 8.5%. So if I'm looking at this and we're still trading within that, okay, you know, nothing's really happening. It's 4% up, 4% down. We're still trading within that for a session. You know, it's clear that there's nothing worth paying attention to. If you start trading outside of this, trading through important levels, you know, on volume, it's just another sign that there's a change compared to previous price action. Beyond just taking out a level, right? Ranges start expanding. You start to look at more expansionary type periods rather than price remaining bracketed and rotational or tight. What do I think for when the bull trend is about to be over? I don't know. You know, there's a lot of people getting a little bit more macro doomerish the last couple of days after FOMC. You know, obviously we priced in utopia, and that's not the case. So whether cuts come a little bit later than they were priced in, it takes a couple sell-offs for that to be priced, to just be cleaned out, honestly. Could have had that in the first couple hours after. But then you had some crazy job numbers come through. So there's always uncertainty in macro. So that's why macro trading it seems like the ultimate puzzle, but it's the worst trading you could do, in my opinion, because you're literally, macro trading, besides for a few people, is honestly, in my opinion, the domain of like precocious, pretentious, like I want to be the master of this, the whole game. I could figure out all the moving parts. It's just in a market, you have to assume that the bigger the surface area, the more shit you're going to be focused on, the more moving parts affect each other, and it becomes way messier than someone who just is like, I don't need to fucking, you know, have that mental masturbation of saying I figured out macro. I'm going to trade biotech penny stocks and make millions of dollars each year, which happens. And I'm just going to focus on trading gaps. I'm going to focus on my gap scanner and trade pre-market gaps and make millions doing that, like some prop guys I know. TIA, I mean, I'm looking at, so my opinion with alts is strength. New alts and strength. So the market likes new and novel. So if you're buying things from last cycle, they better be fucking awesome. I said Solana was going to be the darling of last cycle last year on January, and it ended up being the best performer. I said in a private chat in Rebirth that my opinion was Solana was going to be the best performing asset. So far, you know, it's been the most popular for sure from a percent standpoint, and things have probably exceeded it. But other than that, like if you're still buying old dinosaur shit this cycle, you're making a mistake. Buy the new stuff that has no price action history, no broken chart, and people just have complete optimism about it because they don't know better. And buy things that are cheap looking to other people. So unit bias is big. So new coins, you know, AI is, in my opinion, the next major narrative. I think we're early to that. You can be too early to something, right? So could be too early. I think that's going to be a major bubble. Real world assets, I talked about this in SyncQuote briefly. I don't know enough about individual projects, but ONDO seems cool. I think real world assets obviously there's a future for them. You know, putting things on, tokenizing things, making them more liquid, attaching legal rights to them, but I just don't know exactly who's going to benefit. So I'm trying to focus on whether or not that narrative just has a clear sector that's starting to outperform, and betting on the people betting that it's going to continue to outperform. So basic Keynesian beauty contest stuff. ING, ONDO, SU, TIA. What else? There's a couple others I just took off my monitor. Flip. I'm still in Flip. I have a bag in Flip. Been underperforming. Any new coins that you could I'm still like WorldCoin is something I took it off my watch list because I didn't take it off my watch list, but priority zone. Tau, anything that's new where we could have a hopefully a multi-week, multi-day spill off that I could pick more up in. Let's see. I look at spot and futures heat maps, but in terms of this market now, with spot doing the selling more recently over the last couple weeks, the New York session being the most dominant for that sell flow coming through on Coinbase, I'm focused mostly on spot. Short-term intraday trading, I would focus on derivative exchanges, where lower time frame stuff occurs because of mismatch positioning. But make no mistake, when you have larger pullbacks over broader areas, you want to see the spot market as the one doing the bidding. All right, let's see. Okay, just going back up. BlackRock, other ETF allowed big dump after buying those billions of No, those people are the benefit of the BlackRock ETF is nothing in the short term. Like, people got that confused. Like I said, spike up, sell off after. And there's people that debate it being a sell the news thing. Like, you're fucking kidding me? Sell the news is never literally the second after, unless you're talking about earnings. It's always a couple weeks, couple sessions after. And yeah, there was definitely more selling than buying. It's like people in crypto it has to be one way, like extreme way. So it had to drop down fucking $15,000 for anyone to take it seriously. No, it was a fucking sell off. It corrected over 20%. But the ETF big picture is good. You're talking about hopefully passive buyers that buy over longer periods. And, once they start adding that to structured products and portfolios, it doesn't ever come out. So if 1% of their portfolio rebalances over time, maybe it's 0.5%, whatever it is, it's going to be small, but it's never going to be taken out, and there's going to be more access to it. So it's just a positive avenue for this to just move up over time. So it's got long-term implications. Pepe, another meme coin that I'm actually interested in, but it's not obviously performing as I thought it was going to perform, but definitely interested in Pepe. I like Pepe as a meme. Let's see, INJ. INJ is one that, like I said, it's on my monitor list. This looks good from a high time frame standpoint. If you look at SU, if you look at INJ, and you look at every coin that did this, and when I say this, I mean literally this. So break of an all-time high means that whoever sold was wrong prior to that point. It also giddy ups a lot of the market behind it because it's a really good contextual level to get involved. And high time frame breaks of all-time highs. So this is year-long range, right? It's not exactly as many ranges in here, but in terms of this entire structure. So we're above it now. So big change occurred. I think that this is going to be a really strong pair moving forward. And to be honest, it's been strong the entire time. So new coins and things that have been strong the entire time, people in crypto and trading, it's the only place where people see something winning a lot and go, you know what, now I'm going to bet against it. It's like, imagine if you saw, Jordan in his prime. Are you going to go and bet against him? No, you're going to bet on him, right? Unless he breaks his ankle or something. You see fast horse, right? Just blowing other horses away. You're going to bet on that horse. You're not going to be the dumbass who's like, you know what? This time I'm just going to bet against it because I'm a cool contrarian. It's like, no, you asshole. It's doing really well. It's probably going to just continue to do really well because people add based on that. A Telegram channel was called Bread and Butter. ArtXBT. If picking 5 alts, honestly, I'm not exactly sure. Solana, Celestia, let's see, Solana, Celestia, INJ, SU. So Solana, Celestia, INJ, SU, and ONDO. I'm looking at these. ONDO for a short-term trade, but, and this is not giving anything yet, but I think it might give that sort of spike down here and then another playback towards the range high. Long-term plays, I mean, yeah, maybe a meme coin, but I can't speculate on that stuff. I can't even speculate on my own bags long-term because that's not how I am. I'm BTC long-term. I'm ETH long-term. Solana, I'd say long-term. And the thing is, like, if you're a smaller portfolio, you want to pick other things, right? For me, if BTC goes up 50%, I make a massive amount of money. If BTC doubles, I make an incredible amount of money. So people don't understand that. It's a scale thing too. You know, if you have a couple $1,000s in your portfolio, then you should focus on other pairs, right? You should focus on trading on DEXs and, you know, on chain for the most part. Let's see. DUSK. Yeah. I mean, the most obvious thing that stands out on the chart probably stands out to everyone else too, right? This pivot. Now trading back above that on the weekly. Had a weekly close through it. So just on the high time frame, you know, when you have significant changes in structure like that, it's probably going to be slow to move, but it's a good sign of change. You know, long period bottom like this, multi-year. You know, I think, and DUSK has some other things going for it too, right? So I'd have to dig into that, but chart looks good. Yeah, right now, I mean, if you're having trouble intraday trading, is it BTC or is it alts? If it's BTC, it's price action is going to become a little bit more difficult in BTC, in my opinion. I would focus on trading mid caps if you're intraday trading. Focus where the volume is. Focus on where the open interest is. Those things change every couple of weeks, obviously, right? Flavors of the month, but I think they still trade very technically. Rune. Let me turn these off. Hold on. The fuck? Hold on. Said a potential reversal. I think it's a little early to say that. You'd want it to get back above this VWAP. Everything right now off the backside is below VWAP for this year. So start trading back above this year's VWAP because it's anchored and it's recent, and you could see that it's where positioning is interacting and where there's trouble. Give me one sec, guys. Sorry about that. My dog was barking. I don't know if my dog's barking because someone is at the door. Hold on one sec. Oh, wait a second. What is this? Oh, my. Okay. Like, who the fuck is at my front door? Excuse my language. I forgot I had a Whole Foods delivery. Like, who is this guy carrying boxes up? Right. Club soda, oatmeal, and forgot what else. Yeah, I mean, for Rune, like I said, with a lot of other things as well. You know, where are they sitting with relation to VWAP? So you want to see that it's trading back above at least this year's VWAP from a bigger picture standpoint. Thoughts on chain flip? Sort of a similar idea project to ThorSwap, obviously. I mean, I didn't mean to say obviously. I meant to say honestly. Yeah, a buddy of mine got me in on this, and I bought this at like, what did I buy flip at? I bought flip all the way back here, and I bought flip at like 6 40. So just been underwater ever since. I bought literally the top. But it was a good time in the market. I thought this was going to follow, just didn't pick up. But yeah, it's mainnet's released, but I think mainnet's released, but it's not. Trouble is, it's on a ledger, so I don't, I have it on a hardware wallet, so I didn't reflexively sell it. Yeah, I mean, Alan, I would probably, it depends on conditions if those things matter, but there's a lot staking for TIA. There's a lot of, obviously, there's a very small float relative to the total supply. So this does have an impact unless you're in a period where it's just insane amount of demand. So I do think that TIA has been benefiting because of the, now everyone is staking. I do think that TIA does do what every alt does, which is have a more substantial pullback and correct over time. And this is just one that I'm not interested in buying TIA right now. I'm not interested in buying TIA probably next week. I think that TIA is probably something I want to buy. I think it would probably fall around the middle of the year if just based on the progress of this and what I think this ends up doing. I think that TIA does put in a longer period of correction and consolidation just because of the way there's a lot of people staking. There is an incentive, obviously, to do that, but I don't think that a lot of coins are able to have this kind of move off the beginning, just right off listing, and then not go through again a washout period. It's natural. It's nature. So if TIA starts, I said on a stream, like if TIA, I think I said, like if it starts trading below 13 and going down to 10, like I'm just going to start buying a lot there. I could be wrong. It could continue to go up, but I just, I have trouble buying at this level aggressively. But I would want to own spot for this, not futures, regardless of all those details. Everything spot for long term, because what you want to do is if you want to trick yourself into holding, you want to buy spot and lock that shit away. And that might mean just putting that hardware wallet or whatever it is a couple feet away from where you are with your mouse, or just making it more difficult for yourself to sell. Futures is just so easy to get in and out, right? And futures, when you're trading futures, the effect of red, it has an effect on you, right? Color red, it's connected to negativity. You see red and immediately you change your emotional state. When you have something in a spot wallet and it's tucked away, you're not monitoring it all day, you feel way different about it than when you log into your derivative exchange or your software and see a line item that is in the red and you're looking at that number, and it's the same as if it was in spot, but it's a different feeling. Yeah, definitely. I know a lot of TradFi people that are interested in Asgard. They have access. They could explain it to their clients now. Yeah. And a lot of I think GPTC, I think a lot of that was hedged on futures too. I don't know if it's exactly the GPTC or the perception of GPTC that was causing a ton of sell pressure. But there's other things as well, like what's it called? I'm lost for it right now, but there was a settlement reached, or there's a conclusion with, I can't think of the name right now, that would possibly lead to another good amount of supply hit in the market for creditors. I'm drawing a blank. Having an absolute brain fart right now. All right, so a couple of you guys asked multiple questions. I'm just going to go through the other ones. Yeah, of course I use VWAPs. I just went over them a little bit earlier if you want to tune back. And I actually have on my YouTube, I have a free course and just content on VWAPs. So think about VWAP as just where risk is averaged out. If you're below it, sellers are in control. If you're above it, buyers are in control. If you lose it, right, there's a good case for positioning to be underwater in either direction. It's a dynamic support and resistance zone in some cases. I mean, there's a lot of content I put out on VWAP. I don't have any opinions on Pyth. I think that if BT drops 15%, alts drop more, obviously. Yeah, traditional account. Yeah, so that was, I'm going to talk more about that. I was asking because I have a special for people that if they don't have a brokerage account. It's not a ref link. I don't get commission or anything, but it's a platform that I use that I'm friends with the guys, and they are going to give me ultimately, like I can get reduced trading fees, and if I share it for my followers, they get reduced trading fees as well. Obviously, it helps their business, but it was a conversation we had, and I'm like, I don't know, man. Like my followers, they might be interested, but I'll do a poll and see, how many people might, the potential, base of people that might be interested. We'll see what that looks like. And sure enough, like 50% of people have brokerages, and those who don't would be probably interested in opening one and maybe get some reduced trading fees, and I'll get reduced trading fees too. So I'll share that next week. I think so. When it comes to so where we are right now in the cycle, just bigger picture, and why I think we're also going to look at just more corrections with alts. Alts are jacked up in terms of valuations. With all of this, there's a lot of activity in the futures market, but you need cash buyers continuously. You need cash buyers. So for a lot of these alts, I think the supply hitting the market is obviously bad. Unless we are in a new retail rush, unless we're in a period of up only, I think it just at least leads to sideways price action for them as they weather that over time. And I think most of them, it obviously hurts, right? If you have more supply coming into the market and there's no more demand, or demand is still flat, it's clear where the market's going to go. So you need cash buyers for alts, and that's why I think that so many alts they give it all back. So Mike, my opinion has been for the last few streams I've done, going back months now, for this period of the cycle, and all the spaces I've been on, I always mention this. New coins, because when you look at a chart, one, it has less of an impact on you than if you look at a chart that's broken and has come down 90% of its all-time highs. Unless you're like those people that bottom fish, right? There's plenty of people that buy like that. But it gives you the feeling of newness. You're involved in something close to the beginning. That has a powerful effect on the market, obviously. So that, and anything that's new and is doing well, is likely to continue. Right, as more people continue to pile in on that. There's obviously there's a lot of psychology, behavioral psychology behind it, but new coins, absolutely. The market likes new shit, all right? No one wants to buy EOS again for the 5th time. So I appreciate that, Doc. Yeah, definitely, it's impossible not to change being a dad. All right. Let's now I'm just going to go through these and answer these, and then we're going to hop off because it's just over an hour. It's 2 minutes to an hour and 15, which, we didn't start exactly then, but Tau. So Tau is okay. Here's my thesis on Tau. Everyone who's intelligent that I know and is highly extreme, absolute galaxy brain, maths level person looks at this and goes, dude, that white paper is, I can't even explain it. And obviously that is part of that is me being facetious, but Tau is probably the best play for AI that we have so far. I don't understand the white paper, right? So I am basically betting on the players in this case. It is okay. So one thing about Tau is, one, it's really strong, but it's not really it's not like I wouldn't say it's an honest price right now. So where it is right now, I wouldn't say is necessarily an honest reflection of where it could be, because it's really thin, right? Tau is for a 2 billion. Let's just double check. I think it's like 25 million traded every 24 hours USD volume. Sorry, now I'm starting to get just tired. 24-hour volume is 10 million. Fully diluted valuation is 2.6 billion. Market cap 2.6 billion. Now, it's obvious that it's a big difference in there. Tau is also very low supply. So obviously market cap is It's going to be a function of supply and last traded price. But the thing I think Tau has going for it, and why I pulled this up, is that they actually address that they are like the AI Bitcoin. However they put it, I forgot. But they're drawing attention to the fact that there is a limited supply that is the same exact as Bitcoin. So immediately you could think, oh my God, this could potentially be the price of Bitcoin, maybe greater, maybe slightly less. Either way, maybe one standard deviation away, and that's still a lot. Maybe two, maybe three, but either way, it could be a lot higher than where it is now. 24-hour volume is so low that I don't think this is a representation of an actual auction, establishing some kind of fair value or fair price. If we look at the markets, I mean, you can't get in this for any size. So the trouble is, there is, when supply hits the market, that's, the circulating supply is 6 million, and obviously total supply 21 million. So or the max supply, it's really low float. So this is something that can absolutely just rip in either direction. But it is something that I forgot to mention this. I might have mentioned this as one of my fives. Okay, so I'm stopping taking questions on the YouTube because I moved on to the final ones over here. Open interest, I've gone over this in my course, my free content on YouTube, so just check that out. Otherwise, I'll touch on this during the next stream. Just open interest is positioning in the market, risk in the market. Not risk like the way you're thinking of taking a risk, but actual risk being put on. Okay. Let's see. I was looking over. I went into that. How to manage FOMO. I mean, this is where discipline is really important. You're trading against yourself, right? At the end of the day, if you're a manual trader, you're trading against yourself. I've said many times, most people very quickly will know exactly what they do wrong. Trader Joe, when positions go against him, he moves his stop loss, he takes the stop loss off, and then he starts waiting for it and begging for it to come back to break even. He knows that he does that consistently, and then he ends up cutting it when it's, he cuts it before it does, and he consistently gives back to the market that way. Trader Joe, he knows that he sucks trading the New York session. He still trades it anyway. Trader Joe, he knows that he doesn't have any kind of idea of a take profit, and he just wings it every time. So, he has an idea of exactly what he does, but he still does it anyway, right? So it's, you should journal, honestly. If you want to manage FOMO, journal so you have an idea of what you do from a analytics standpoint, or with analytics from a evidence standpoint. See what things you consistently do wrong. FOMO, I mean, it's managing your behavior. And it's tough to do that in this market, so I'm sorry about that, but it's tough to do that in this market because there's just people on Twitter all day sharing how they've turned, $100 into $1 million. You have to just dial in on your own, honestly. Take it very seriously. When vol's low, I just take off. I suggest everyone does the same if we have a bull market ahead of us. Still, we're in a bull market right now, but take some time off when you get it. You'll be begging for it at some point, hopefully. A lot of times, like when you have liquidation cascades, everyone knows that this trade exists. You have an area of lows, market liquidates a bunch, right? So this is a big gap down. This leaves a big air pocket in the book. So if this was a profile, it would look like that. Leaves a big air pocket. Bunch of volume goes into the low. What you see is small little volume makes price move a lot. People pile onto this trade then because this is a free trade to close the gap. Liquidation below lows. Here's your lows. Leaves a gap. Offers a long back up. And now this is just a bunch of new long positioning. So often what you'll see is if this appears as a wick on your chart, if this was like a candle like this, and we traded all the way back up, this is all new positioning. Market, once it starts moving back against it and this trade is off, you'll see that often these wicks get refilled and retapped. So it's just a short-term positioning phenomena. If I got into crypto at 10 to 20K, I would focus on chain and I would just trade on DEXs. I have a Discord. It's free, but I just don't spend much time in it right now. I think that covers it. That's everything. All right, guys. I think we're going to wrap it up. So remember, there is the link in my profile for any of the platforms, book list. You're already on the YouTube, but I think that link takes you right to the playlist. Yeah, it's been enjoyable. Hope you guys enjoyed this, took something from it. I think I answered at least one of everybody's questions. Like, some people ask multiple questions, and wanted to make sure I answered a question from everybody. But we're over our time limit now. I will probably hop on this week again. Can't say exactly when, because you guys know if I do that I'll break that promise and reschedule it 4 times. All right, everyone have a good night. I don't know how to end streams, you could tell. Like, all right, see you later, alligator.